going to go ahead and get started with another episode of EoN, or East of Nowhere podcast. Today we're going to be discussing RPGs, especially since we have two big ones coming out, and that's Skyrim, the new Elder Scrolls game, and Mass Effect 3. Before we get right into it, I'm going to make the introductions of everybody. Sitting across from me is my partner in all this, the guy doing all the artwork for everything, and that's Chuck.
Hello, everybody.
And sitting next to him is the great ranter, the guy we bring on because he always has some very interesting things to say, and that's Soto.
How's it going?
And lastly is our good buddy here, a guy from, actually from America, I think.
Technically.
You might remember him from the last episode, maybe. He said probably about 5 words.
5, 6, he was there. He was there in spirit, is what we're saying. And this is going to be Morrow.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
All right, so we're actually going to move right into it. And like I said, today's topic is going to be RPG games. And I think one thing we actually talked about just before starting the show is what actually defines an RPG. Because nowadays, games are coming out with all these RPG-like elements, but there's still games out there that are defined as role-playing games, RPGs. So, I mean, what do you guys think makes an RPG?
I'd say, just the fine-tuning of character customization and, that you see with, like, putting points in different attributes, like a lot of, like Soto was saying. That,
definitely progressive development of the character.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing. And then, gear collection and, story-driven, of course. That's my opinion of it.
Yeah, story-driven is, to me, the biggest case of making. I mean, RPGs, they live and die on their world and their storyline and their characters.
But all of these definitions bring different games into the fold that most people go, no, not really an RPG.
But then, like any great lore, you can argue so many games to be an RPG, but yeah, they don't really have the spirit of an RPG.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that started with the PlayStation era, like I was talking about. And it was in the PlayStation era. I mean, you had defined clear lines of genre, and then
platformer, so on and so forth.
Action games and. I mean, RPGs were the story-driven, the ones with the big cinematics, the many characters, the world in peril, and it seemed like as time went on, the other manufacturers looked at that and said, "Hey, they have some good ideas. Let's integrate that into our games."
And now you have perks and gear in Call of Duty.
Yeah,
and that's an RPG,
and a leveling system, and so yeah, I mean, but to me, there's a certain essence that goes into an RPG, and a lot of it has to do with the way that it's so very story-driven and world-driven and on average, most RPGs take 20 to 40 hours to beat. These are long, epic games that kind of start out with a slow burn and move in. They live and die, like I said, on their world and their story.
I like to think every game should live and die on their storyline.
Ideally,
personally,
yes.
Because I think storylines have to be like 80% of what makes it great.
I think probably the only thing we can
saying something different on that percentage, but I don't care.
Probably the only thing we can all agree on in RPGs is the definitions is very ambiguous.
But there's definitely stuff out there that is primarily an RPG, and nowadays RPGs are taking action elements or shooter elements, but there's something that defines what an RPG is.
Okay, can I just say real quickly, how is it hilarious that the Japanese RPGs get their own category? JRPGs. Like, what defines a JRPG? Well, there's got to be a shirtless 14-year-old boy. No, because they make non-turn-based JRPGs. Shirtless 14-year-old boy at some point. Definitely some gay characters. Definitely some furry-esque characters at some point as well. And souls. There's always souls.
And it has to have a 14-year-old character that's just getting out of his village for the very first time in order to walk in and save the entirety of the world he didn't know existed.
And by the way, it's never a small conflict at risk. It is always the entirety of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Or the universe.
Epic storyline is probably one of the biggest earmarks of it, yeah.
Along with, like, weapons that are completely unwieldable by anybody.
Ever.
14-year-old kid carrying around a 2-done claymore. It's like, okay, yeah, I see that happening.
I agree that JRPG is definitely their own thing, and they're nowhere near as popular as they used to be.
I just find it hilarious that they get their own category. That's how ridiculous they are.
And Japanese should always have their own category, I think.
Yeah. Before, back in the days of Super Nintendo and PlayStation, JRPG was pretty much all there was, and they were great back then.
Back then.
Back then, yeah, that's true.
20 years ago.